Welcome to ETK Food Series. We have with us four illustrious employees of Jocata, and we have been with this company for maybe about since inception. And let's capture their views on what is it like being with a startup, the kind of inhibitions they had, the kind of challenges they face, and the most important thing is what it takes to keep contributing to such a wonderful startup. Start with Sundari.
Yeah, my name is Sundari, and I head engineering here, and I've been here close to 3 years. And the one thing that I like working for a startup is it poses challenges every single day, and you get to learn a lot. You are always pushing the boundaries, not just for your own self, but for people who are working for you. You help them grow, you grow as part of this journey.
Right.
I'm Santosh. I'm product manager at Jocata. Though the role says product manager, but I end up doing like literally everything. You start from testing, writing specifications, talking to clients, talking to employees to understand their problems end to end. So this is essentially what a startup is. It gives you the liberty to do what you really like and utilize all resources possible in the best of the optimal way. So it's been a wonderful journey so far. I've been here for 2 years and I got to learn so many things, not just about my role, but also about running a business as such.
Hi, my name is Rahul. I'm a product manager with Jocata. I've been here for a little over 2 years. So some of the benefits, I guess, what I enjoy being in a startup is one of them being transparency. I've been with a multinational company before, but here the advantage in a startup is you see tangible results in terms of there's so much accountability in a startup that your hard work here kind of shows up in some results which either your client appreciation or something. So there's a lot of transparency in terms of the work that is being done. Another benefit of being in a startup, I guess, is your learning curve. I think typically in a larger organization, what 10 people or 15 people do is something that a single person does here. So that gives you that much more benefit to learn and kind of broaden your breadth of learning in terms of your profile or in terms of what kind of work you do. So these are some things that you don't really get in a larger organization and you just benefit by working in a startup company.
Yeah, hi, my name is Santosh Ghoshal and I'm the client delivery manager here at Jocata. I've been here for around probably 3 years. My entire experience for this, working in a startup is mainly that whatever work you do has a direct impact on the company. I was working in an MNC before this, and whatever work you did, the effect of it would happen probably some other place where you didn't even know. But in a startup, whatever work you do, good or bad, has an immediate effect on that. And interacting with clients and all starts from the very first step itself. In mostly other companies, you are brought in at a much later level when most of the initial work already happens. And again, in startup, every day is a new day. There is nothing that this is what your job would be for that particular day. Anything can happen. That's the best part of working in a startup.
In terms of, I think all of you have come with your own experiences before me. I think some of you had worked with MNCs and things like that. Now, the startup culture expects that maybe some of it has to be undone. Because people say that the best way to learn is to unlearn. So the kind of unlearning has to happen so that you can keep moving. So from that perspective, what has been your most important unlearning that have happened since the beginning? Not the learnings, I'm sure each one of you must be having. But unlearning is very important because that's something that people should be conscious of, that they don't know how to make progress.
The one thing that I had to unlearn, actually this is the third startup I am part of.
Oh.
And I remember the first startup when I was joining, my previous boss kept asking me, are you sure you want to work for a startup?
Right.
Because I was at ADS before that.
Okay.
And then I said, yes, I would like to try it. And the one thing I really had to unlearn there was you are expected to do everything, and then you will not have a defined role. You will do pretty much everything that comes your way. You have to wear different hats. So whereas in a bigger company you will have a defined role, and then that is what you're expected to do. But at a startup it's the exact opposite.
Yes, Santosh.
Yeah, I kind of pretty much agree with Sundari, but for me the biggest unlearning was like when in my previous company, which was also an MNC, we were always told to do what is expected. Like you always know what you're supposed to do. But when I come to a startup, it's my problem. So I have to know what I should do. It's completely different from what you do at a big company. So, like I said, you have all the creative liberties possible to do what is best for the company. So this is the biggest benefit I had working at Jocata.
So something similar, but I wouldn't really call it unlearning. I guess the advantage or however you look at disadvantage is with larger companies, they already have processes in place, and with something related to the points already mentioned, that when you want to create a documentation, there's already a process defined on how the documentation should be. If you want to do write a piece of code, there's already a process of what coding standards are to be followed. So the benefit I would like to look at it as a benefit is, in a startup, you define everything. You define your process, you stick to that process. So that's something that you have that much more liberty in a startup, which you probably don't have elsewhere, because there's already a predefined kind of notion of what needs to be done. Here you define your process and you abide by that process.
I mean, I think for me it's a mix of all the points that they all said. But for me, I think one thing was dependency. I had to unlearn dependency. Because in the previous organization, you were dependent on certain departments to do your stuff. You had the travel people who would take care of it. You had your finance people who would take care of it. So you had to unlearn that dependency and get more independent in a startup. So that definitely helped me learning how stuff are supposed to be done. But my biggest unlearning was not to be dependent.
Great. I think the next issue that we would like to hear from all of you is that one of the biggest things that research has found into startups, especially in the evolving stages, how do you manage people's expectations? Managing expectations becomes one is you manage your own expectations. Of course, each work you've done with a different background and all that. And then, since all of you are senior people, because you are at a different managerial level and all that, so it also becomes imperative for you to manage others' expectations, because startup is by itself is a different animal altogether. So, given that perspective, what is the best way, or what kind of learnings do you have in terms of managing your own expectations, and therefore you can also manage others' expectations? When I say others, it can also mean the owners, the founders' expectations of you. So, what has been the learning? Let's start with.
Actually, I mean, for me, my expectations to build that expectation was in constant discussion with Prashant and the founders. Because when you work in other companies, that's imbibed in you. So it's definitely a top-down approach. I mean, in our organization, we were lucky that the expectations, the vision, and all was so clear. And we have to constantly work with their guidelines. We have to constantly work. So it definitely takes some time for that expectation to imbibe in us.
Say this. Was there any leeway that you are using? In other words, were your point of view also encouraged?
No, definitely. I mean, definitely they were encouraged. I mean,
sense of ownership.
Yes, the sense of ownership was there. But it was more important for us to understand because we all came in as I said, in a very structured environment. And I mean, now we've become much more structured. I mean, when you see 2 years back, everything was much more haphazard. Everything was much more thing. But then our founders had it very strongly placed that this is what we need to achieve, this is what we need to do. And once that got imbibed in us, we were able to imbibe the same thing for people below us. So it's a very top-down approach that happens in a startup, because once that foundation is strong, all the confusion which happens in the side is just dust which is waiting to settle down. So that is how our expectation is built. So once it happens from top to us, we kind of tell the same thing down. And another best part is there is a lot of open communication. I mean, if you see even how our office is set up, it's not like a cabinet system. You can just sit across and talk, and that is what is very important. If you don't have a lot of talking that's happening in startup, people will just get confused as to what's happening around. So, I mean, gossip is in right from a MNC to a startup. I mean, that is there everywhere. But what is more important is the fact is just open talk, which happens, and that is what we truly wanted to happen.
It builds on the culture.
It builds on the culture, yeah. Again, just saying it once again, we can just sit anywhere. It's an open office culture. We can talk about it. We openly have discussions about all this. And year after year, the expectations are changing.
And therefore, this open culture also doesn't lead to great collaboration amongst people.
Yeah, absolutely. It gives out a lot of ideas. It gives out a lot of people to talk openly and all that stuff. again, it's a very learning process that keeps on happening.
Right.
But it's definitely much more easier than MNC. Yeah. Like MNC, you have to follow protocol.
Right.
You have to follow that. You have to go across these levels to meet the higher management. You can't just enter his cabin or without a meeting request, without an appointment. I mean, here also we can't just have it. But it's much more easier. It's much more better
Right.
to talk about it. So that collaborative thing helps us build our expectations.
So any other perspective on managing expectations? I think one.
Yes, just one point to actually add on. I think the earlier point I mentioned about transparency. I guess one of the benefit here also in meeting that expectations is having the same setting that expectation.
Right.
So here the advantage we have also is the expectation is not set by somebody distantly far away from us, and so that's kind of seeping through after n levels and reaching us saying, okay, now we have to reach that expectation.
Yeah.
So the benefit here is we have same that expectation. Sure, end of the day, the decisions taken by the founders and co-founders, but you at least have a say to say it's not. It's if you know it's unreasonable to even meet that, then you at least have a say to say maybe we have to lower that expectation. So by having a say in it, we at least ensure that we are reasonably there, and then it's easier to then percolate that through the other levels below.
Right.
So yeah, just having a say in it is better.
And therefore, does it also help all of you? Because I think a lot of people must be reporting into each one of you. So does it also help, this kind of open culture, transparency, and therefore you say in setting the agenda itself, the corporate agenda or the business agenda. Does all this help in managing the expectations of people who report to you? Because the people again, I see, I think average age would be just about 23 before that, what you see here. And given that age, and given that fact that all of them are millennials, they come with contradictions, including contradictions, not about characteristics but contradictions. Given all that, does it all help to manage their expectations?
Sure. So actually, one of the way also is we usually have what we typically call a town hall. We don't have a town, but yeah. So every year, actually, Prashant and if Andrea, co-founders around, they actually speak to all the employees. So they actually lay a foundation because maybe the idea is still nascent at that stage, but at least they lay a foundation on what is coming up for that year.
So you're mentally prepared.
Mentally prepared for it.
One of the advantages is the open communication. So when you have an open communication, it's much more easy to manage the expectations. So anybody needs anything, they would instantly they can come to any of us and say that, look, Santosh, I have a problem in this, what do I do?
Right.
Am I going in the right way? So is there a defined career path for me? Let's say when you look at MNC, 2 years junior developer, then you become a developer, senior developer. But here we don't have that. Like if you're really good, next day you could become CTO and Sundari may not be here.
Except the founder.
So the advantage is because of the open communication, everybody knows what is expected of them, and they also know what they have to contribute.
Absolutely.
It's also a learning for all of us, in the sense, along with the founders and all of us too.
No, but I think what I'm coming from is that given your experience, I think between four of you, you must be having close to 30, 40 years of experience, right? But you also have people who are just about maybe 1 or 2 years experience, but they brought in the system with due diligence, whatever it is. But then, given their age, given their background, and all that, so the issue is that how do you manage their expectations? Because one is, they might not like to learn immediately. That's the age.
They are definitely skeptical. I mean, once they come out of the engineering college, it is they want a MNC tag beside their name. It is definite. I mean, we all are coming into the whole startup culture almost after 7-8 years of experience because we know the advantages. What we try to do is that we keep on telling them, and I think again when we go to a college, we try and give them a very good presentation of what a company does. We kind of tell them that how we've come there.
Also, what is expected of them?
What is expected out of them, and we definitely tell them the advantages of a startup culture. The final sale is done by a CEO, so he definitely gives them clear cut. This is how it is, and how he talks and tells them that this is what you expect. The general mindset is definitely changing. But for new joiners, they are a bit more skeptical of joining it. But we have a large chunk of new joiners here, so we were able to convince them, and they all are here for almost 2.5 years. So that's a good time that they have even stuck around.
What's more difficult in terms of setting expectations is once a person is into the company, you can actually show them how things happen.
Right, yeah.
So you hire new people and hire expectations of a prospective employee, that's more difficult.
Right.
It's so difficult in India, especially in Hyderabad, to hire people into startups. So setting their expectations is very difficult. Because once you're in the company, you can easily tell you, this is what you have to do, and we can explain them, we can actually show them. But what do we do for a person whom you want to hire?
Right.
Not just for juniors, even for like lateral recruits, it's very difficult to convince people to come to a startup.
Right.
So setting their expectations is more.
But I think the very fact that the attrition rate is absolutely, close to zero, it is, except that
Yeah.
in Nagpur. So that is a manifestation of the fact that how well all of you have managed, and of course with the help of your CEO and co-founders, that these people have been managed very well. Right.